Welcome to another session of Understanding Human Anatomy and our continuation of the discussion of the perineum, and in particular we're discussing the male urogenital triangle. Now in this video I want to start by drawing a roughly coronal section through the pelvis. The section will pass through the obturator foramina. It will pass through the urinary bladder and will cut the male urethra lengthwise down to the bulb. So we'll start by drawing in the two superior pubic rami, and then the two inferior pubic rami, and we'll add the obturator membrane. So the obturator membrane I'll put in gray. And remember that the obturator foramen is covered almost entirely by this obturator membrane. Then we'll sketch in the urinary bladder. And the urethra. There. We'll add the prostate gland. And remember that the prostate gland surrounds the urethra. And let me color in the prostate to make it stand out a little bit easier. Next, we need to add some muscle. And I'm going to start with sketching in the Obturator Internus muscle. And it's, of course, taking origin from the superior pubic ramus and the ischiopubic ramus, and most importantly from the obturator membrane. So, before I get too carried away here, let me get some labels in here. We have the prostate, and we have the urethra, And we'll draw a line to the urethra. And then we have the obturator internus muscle. And I'll draw a line to it. Now, the obturator internus muscle is covered by a layer of fascia, and I'm going to draw that fascia in orange, and this is the obturator internus fascia. Now, we have the muscles of the pelvic diaphragm, the levator ani and coccygeus. And we have that muscle taking origin from the obturator internus fascia, at least in part. And since all muscles are covered by a layer of fascia, we have the internal fascia of the pelvic diaphragm and the external fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. Covering the muscle, butting up against the urethra. So, again, let us put some labels into the diagram. The pelvic diaphragm and remember, the pelvic diaphragm is made up of levator ani and coccygeus that is here, and we have the internal fascia of the pelvic diaphragm, and we'll draw a line to it. And then the external fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. and we'll draw a line to that layer of fascia. Next, we have the urogenital diaphragm. And the urogenital diaphragm, remember, is quite a bit thinner than the pelvic diaphragm. We'll sketch it in here. And again, that would consist of the sphincter urethrae and the deep transverse perineus, and additionally the superficial transverse perineus, although that would be out of this plane of section. We wouldn't see that at all. And this also has a layer of fascia around it. Originating from the obturator internus fascia and surrounding the muscle and coming back to attach to the obturator internus fascia. Again, let's put some labels into the diagram. So we have the urogenital diaphragm, and again, this is composed of sphincter urethrae, the deep transverse perineus muscle, and the superficial transverse perineus muscle. And we'll draw a line to that layer of muscle. And again, I'll label on the other side the layers of fascia, the internal fascia, of the urogenital diaphragm. There. And then the external fascia of the urogenital diaphragm. And again, I'll draw a line to that layer of fascia. Now, we also have erectile bodies in this area, and the first one I'm going to draw in is the bulb, I'm drawing it in purple, like so. And just to make it more visible, we'll color it in. And then on each ischiopubic ramus, we will have a cura of the corpus cavernosum. And likewise, I'll color those in to make them more visible. So let me add some labels. The bulb, and the cura of the corpus cavernosum. There. Then some more muscle. We have the bulbospongiosus muscle, and the bulbospongiosus muscle wraps around the bulb, like so. And then we have a pair of ischiocavernosus muscles which wrap around the cura. So label in the ischiocavernosus, muscle. And we'll draw a line to it. And then we'll have the bulbospongiosus muscle. And that is a single muscle in the midline, whereas the ischiocavernosus muscles are paired. Next, we will have a layer of fascia surrounding each of these muscles we've just drawn in. And this fascia is just known as investing fascia. Surrounding each of the muscles we've drawn in the two ischiocavernosus muscles and the single bulbospongiosus muscle. We have one more layer of fascia to sketch in, and that is the superficial fascia of the perineum. So we're going to start it here on one ischiopubic ramus. And wrap it around like so. And this is Colles fascia. And unlike most superficial fasciae, Colles fascia is a very tough fascia, a very dense fascia, and it's a continuation of the abdominal fascia. And just to be complete, let me draw in, or let me label, the investing fascia, which surrounds the two ischiocavernosus muscle and the bulbospongiosus muscle. So, notice that there's a space between the internal fascia of the urogenital diaphragm and the external fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. This space right in here draw it in on both sides is continuous with the ischiorectal fossa. And if you're taking a dissection course One of the things that most dissectors will ask you to do after you have cleaned the fat out of the ischiorectal fossa, they'll ask you to explore this space between the pelvic diaphragm and the urogenital diaphragm with your finger. It's like most spaces in the body filled with fat. That concludes our discussion of the coronal section through the male urogenital triangle. In the next video, we'll look at a sagittal section through the male pelvis and also a section through the penis. Thank you for your attention.